Shalom and welcome to this special one-year anniversary edition of the No Regrets Hour with our co-host Rhonda Stoppe, the No Regrets woman with more than 30 years of experience as a marriage mentor, pastor's wife, author, and speaker. She leads women of all ages to live lives with no regrets. Using sound biblical teaching through humor and honest communication, she teaches women how to apply God's Word to live boldly through the power of the Holy Spirit. She appears on radio programs, television programs, MOPS groups, homeschool conventions, and she is our host of the No Regrets here on Revealing the Truth on the first Wednesday of every month at the 12 o'clock hour. And we are just at releasing The Marriage Mentor, Becoming the Couple You Long to Be, along with her other books. If My Husband Would Just Change, I'd Be Happy, and Other Miss Wives Believe. Moms Raising Sons to Be Men, just amazing story. And this book co-written with her husband, Steve, who's referred to as Stoppe. Welcome to this special one-year anniversary edition of the No Regrets Hour. It is just exciting. And,
wow, that went fast.
It went very fast.
It's almost like I wasn't even there.
It's as if you weren't even there. But I'll tell you, Steve, and I'm going to call you Steve, not Stoppe. That's her code name for you.
Yeah.
We have broken so much ground in this 1 year into repositioning and reposturing. And I will tell you the life lesson, and this is a personal testimony of what impact Rhonda has had on me. When I came to faith and was being mentored and shepherded to go into ministry, I thought that the highest calling in life was to preach the gospel. I thought that this was, in my corporate career, 35 years in corporate America, I was now being promoted to preach the gospel. I went through a very terrible betrayal, and God was doing a major work in restructuring my ministry and making it global instead of local, and what the enemy meant for evil, God worked for his good. But what I found out after interviewing with Rhonda for the past year, that the highest calling is not preaching the gospel. The highest calling began when God brought Adam, Eve, and asked him to shepherd her heart. And he didn't do it. And that's where sin entered the world. And the highest calling was shepherding a woman's heart. And as I began to read The Marriage Mentor and all of the books and all my conversations with Rhonda, I began to realize that the one thing that you have done, which in my mind helped me realize that the highest calling that any man can have and the highest responsibility is to shepherd a woman's heart. That was the original responsibility that God gave to Adam, and it's the responsibility He's given it to us. That after these 30 years of you two being together, you've arrived at this place where you have shepherded this woman's heart to where she is a kingdom changer, a kingdom builder, and together you truly have become one. And it is a lesson that has profoundly changed my focus and my perspective of what should be important in my life, and how when I mentor and how when I impart to young couples as to what the role of the husband is to be and what the highest calling is to mentor and shepherd his own wife's heart. And I give you the credit for that through your wife, Rhonda. So thank you.
Well, thank you. So much of that isn't me, though. So much of that is just the Spirit of God working both in my heart and her heart, and drawing her to that unity and oneness. But you know, looking back at our marriage and just the years that we spent, we've always known that you want to, number one, keep the wife of your youth. You want to do what's right in the relationship. You're one. God has called you from two people to basically put you in one flesh. I think, isn't it in Malachi or something where it actually says that you share one soul? I think Malachi 5 or something like that. And to be honest with you, I don't know what that means, but to me, that's really, really important to God.
It means I'll never leave in your side.
Yeah, that's kind of what it means. So I knew the importance of that, and of course, why do you do that? Well, it's to raise a godly seed. What would it be like if we have this great marriage, but our kids go off and serve themselves, or serve man, or serve Satan, or wow, how would you call that a successful unity? So I think just all those things come into play. The importance of keeping that first. I've seen so many pastors, and I'm with you, but preaching the Gospels. How do you minimize that? That's the greatest calling God can give you if you're qualified, and if you are. I like where Paul says, I don't want to be disqualified ever from being able to do what I do, and so that is a very, very high calling, and I don't take that for granted. But what would it be if your home was in shambles, if your wife was not on board with you, for not being shepherded, and not one with you in those things? How important is that? And so it's always been an important thing for me, and for her too. And so I've had some good. We're talking about mentoring. I've had some good mentoring in my past. My dad loved my mom. He wasn't a pastor, but he was a believer, and he loved the Lord. He loved my mom. We have a lot of funny stories about mom and dad, but he did what he was called to do, and I think even learning from his example, how to raise the kids, how to discipline, how to be the man of the family, how to have the respect that you're supposed to have as a man. So all those things, right, come into play, and all those things are important. And so I'm very thankful that the Lord allowed me to understand those things, know those things, and try to work toward those things. And of course, He gives us the wisdom to do that.
I have to touch on his parents that he talked about, his mom and dad. His dad just loved his mom selflessly. And I actually tell Bill and Eleanor's story in The Marriage Mentor. When they had been married for, I don't even know how many years, a long time, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And, that man never left her side. And he sold everything they had in the Bay Area, and they moved up on our ranch so he could quit work, so he could take care of Eleanor. And he just adored her. And even when she didn't know who he was, even when she couldn't remember that he was her husband, she still was the apple of his eye. And I remember he would deliver our mail on our porch, and I remember hearing him on the porch with Steve just sobbing as he grieved, slowly losing this woman that he said. And I remember when people would say, put her in a home, and he'd say, she's my sweetheart. And that's the kind of love and selfless love that Steve was exposed to. I get to be the benefit of that type of mentoring from his own father that, I was kind of crazy when we got married. I was very selfish, very self-absorbed, very kind of the entitlement mentality. I married you to make me happy, so step up. And he continued to love me through that. He continued to have me in church every week. A lot of times men will complain that their wives are not what they hope they would be, but they don't read the word with them. They don't pray for their wives. They don't have them in a godly Bible teaching ministry. And they wonder how she's going to grow, or how she's going to be convicted of her sin if she's not being washed with the water of the word.
Well, you two met when, I believe, you were 14?
Whoa.
Rhonda,
You really told him that?
Well, it's kind of all over. But we didn't date because I was way too young and he ran
grief.
from me.
She was a baby.
So,
and actually, we won't spend time to tell our love story, but you can go to my website, No Regrets Woman,
right,
and you can click on The Marriage Mentor and scroll down, and there's a whole video of us telling how we met. It's
or don't,
fun.
whatever you want to do.
Right.
He talks more about his 1969 Mach 1 that he had to sell when we got married than anything else. But it's
I've
a
never
fun
really
video.
gotten over that, to be quite frank.
If you know of one out there for sale that we could pick up for a cheap
A buck.
well, it reminds me of Revelation 2. You've forsaken your first love. Look at the heights from which you've fallen. You had to get rid of the car.
Oh, the candlestick's gone,
Oh,
pal.
yeah. I learned to drive in that car. It's got a lot of memories.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Sorry you had to hear that.
Well, it has been just an honor and a joy. But one of the, I think, outstanding moments of getting to know Rhonda and your family is clearly seeing that a good tree bears good fruit and a bad tree bears bad fruit, and a bad tree can't bear good fruit. And when I see the pictures, and you know your wife is somewhat of a sharer, she's somewhat of a
Yes,
Don't tell him.
you know,
I don't know where she gets this stuff.
right.
We just took an amazing trip to Oregon coast on our way to Harvest House, our publisher, and he didn't let me post one picture the whole time.
No.
And, yeah,
I said, put it in
he
your
said he's on
pocket.
vacation, so we had fun.
She's like the poster child for poster.
Yeah. Oh, you don't know. Oh, man.
You know, I literally, and because I follow her, because she's a guest and we have to be contemporary with our conversation because they're 30 days apart, so I have to stay current with what the latest and you know, the latest grandchild story, the latest son and daughter story,
yeah.
all that in order to keep this contemporary. So I kind of live at your home and with the peacocks and I'd stay in the guest house and I've slept on the couch and you know,
You probably know more about my grandkids than I do.
I might have more pictures of them than you do.
Oh, you do.
You know, so the idea, I looked up oversharer in Webster's dictionary, and it's
Picture of Rhonda.
no, there's just a link. NoRegretsWoman.com.
Well, hold on. There'll be a picture soon.
I just have to figure out how to load that up.
Right. You know, so I've been shopping with her and the grandkids. I've been to the beach. I've been to the farm. You know,
You know, she's never done any sports with her.
No.
I'm just saying.
Right.
No.
I have not tossed we've not tossed the football at all.
No.
Because you won't see me doing that.
Exactly. So it's been just an amazing journey. But I wanted to kind of talk to you about this real focus on mentoring, because Rhonda shared with me about a survey that was done of 15,000 youth surveyed, 15,000 millennials, and the most said that they had no mentor in their life.
Yeah.
And you know, you and I struggle with biblical literacy being at the highest level. We have people who are searching for relevance. We have gender confusion, self-awareness, self-definition, narcissism to the nth degree. All of this because the couples and the older 40 years, 50 years are not being engaged to tell their stories, and I don't think that this is being embraced by the church. Oh, if you want to have a small group, we'll have a small group. But this is not a small group. This is a commitment to impact a person's life, to walk side by side with them in their faith journey.
Right.
And I know this began in your life early on, because you brought a young man into your home years ago. Mm-hmm. And this process started years ago where you had a heart. You moved from the city out to the middle of, can't even find it on the map.
Ooh. And you won't.
Right. I actually think it's the only location that I don't know where she's been, and that's when she's home.
No man's land.
Yeah,
Right.
No woman's land.
This is very safe zone. But what impacted you to become a mentor and to see how necessary it was, not only for individuals, but then for the two of you to collaborate on the Marriage Mentor, where you were able to give a point of view that is distinctly different, the same object, different perspective, and it's what makes you fit together as the marriage mentors, and why this needs to become the replacement for the Me Too movement and for the Antifa and for all this other stuff. Mentorship should be at the pinnacle of, I don't think it shows up on spiritual gifts inventory. Somebody needs to update that so that people can find out that here are the spiritual gifts that make a good mentor. And if you have these, you need to be mentoring other people, and pastors need to be almost insisting. People want to do a marriage rededication at 25 years. Okay, well, part of that means now you're on our mentorship program. We're just not going to recommit you to each other. We're going to commit you to take the lessons you've learned those 25 years and impart those. So let us introduce you at your 25th, when you reconfirm your vows. Let us introduce you to Sally and Tommy Jones, because they're now your new couple, and you're now mentoring them, and you sit them at the head table with them, and their mentorship begins at that event. How did this become a part of your life?
Wow. Okay. My mind just went, almost exploded here in this no man's land, because there's so much. First of all, let me say this. I don't think there was a time where I go, oh, I'm a mentor. I think as far as even your gifts, you look at what are all the gifts for. It's really for the purpose of bringing others to understanding God's Word more, living God's Word more, walking with the Spirit more. That is mentoring, right? Yes, I agree. That should be something we all do. One of the things that we do when we come to Christ is the Bible says you die to yourself and live unto Christ. The Bible says that now it's not about me. I mean, that's everything you mentioned about what's going on in the world. The heart of man hasn't changed. It's still the heart of man. It's all about me. It shows itself out in different movements and this and that and the other thing. And I mean, now you got video games, and all of our young kids are got their face in that. They don't even talk to other people unless they have their face in the game, talking about the game. It's a whole different world out there, but the heart of man is still the heart of man. And so I think what I kind of realized along the way as the Lord just kind of, changed my life and my heart is that we have a great responsibility to live selfless lives and to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with others, like you were talking about. We get to do that, and that's a wonderful thing. But along with that comes, how do we live this life? And so, in a way, it should kind of be natural for every believer to have that desire, or at least that innate, maybe I ought to do this. And while I hate programs, somebody comes to me and says, hey, we got this great program to do this. It's like usually I just kind of, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard with me. But it's like, well, rather than a program, why don't you just go live your life? Why don't you just go live, bringing others to Christ? Why don't you live teaching them how to live godly lives? And I mean, that's what Paul told Timothy. That's what he told Titus. And I realized they were preachers, but I think, I think what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, the concept or the idea is really for all believers. And so I think you're exactly right. I think getting believers to understand, listen, you came to Christ, die to yourself. Jesus said, unless you pick up your cross and follow me, deny yourself. It starts with denying yourself. Who wants to do that? But unless you do that, you have no part of me. Well, man, that begs the question, how many of us have really done that? And so if I'm looking at my own life going, you know what, my goals, whatever I think I want to do, what does it matter? God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to pour into the lives of others? I think that becomes your prayer. And then it really kind of becomes an outshoot of that, and just I think just a tentacle of that. It just it's a heart's desire. I don't think you go, well, I think I'm going to be a mentor this year. That's nice, and if somebody does that, I'm not going to tell you not to, but it just, I think it just comes kind of, oh, I like this word. It's a new word, organically. Oh, doesn't that just sound good? I saw a church start the other day, and they said, come and feel our organic service. And I went, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to be organic, so I just used organic.
That's awesome.
I love
You
that.
know what
And thank you for allowing me to do that, by the way.
Yeah. What comes to mind as he's talking
and we
is
did
a few things.
we did it organically.
Organically. Found it.
Exactly. Come on.
What comes to mind is, first of all, that God, Titus calls the older to teach the younger. We know all of that. But it's building those relationships. And I've watched Steve genuinely love people. And how does that happen? By loving Christ. As Jesus said, love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. You don't go start loving God with all your strength until you've loved him with all your heart, soul, and mind. And then the strength he gives you, and it's God who works in you to will and to do his good pleasure. I remember when we brought Tony into our family. He was 15 years old when we met him. He was the oldest. And anyone that'll tell you when you bring a child into your home, you don't ever bring the oldest. You don't change that birth order. But he was irresistible to us. It was just, we sat down, the situation that he was going through in his own personal home life, and there was just no saying no to having him be our son. And he has watched Steve love me well. He's watched Steve love our children well. I'm going to read a quote I wrote Tony's story in Moms Raising Sons to Be Men. And one of the quotes that is in the very first chapter of the book, it says, "The family was and continues to be my living definition of both what God expects from me and what he wants for me. I am thankful for this example, and I have no doubt that it was God's plan for our lives to me." I love knowing Tony's story. Tony's a fighter pilot in the Air Force. He's a lieutenant colonel now. He flies can I tell her, will we have to kill him?
No, we'd have to kill him.
Oh, he flies an airplane, a big one. Or is
No, it's a fighter.
It's a fighter. He's a fighter pilot.
It's F-22.
I never know what I'm allowed to tell.
You can say
Anyway,
F-22.
he flies the F-22. Actually, now he's training the young pups to fly the F-22s. And I'm real proud of one of the things
You can't tell that.
he said recently was, as a trainer for these young pilots that are coming in, he's training them not just to fly a plane, but not to think they're all that, not to ruin their marriages over there. And here's another story I just thought of, and I love it. When he was in Panama City, Florida, training to fly jets, he went to a Sunday school class off base, and his teacher happened to be a retired fighter pilot. And Steve had raised Tony, knowing whatever God's called you to. I don't care if you're a ditch digger, he always tells our kids, as long as you're serving the Lord. And Tony called home.
Nothing wrong with a ditch digger,
No,
by the
there's
way.
not. Tony called home after he was in this program, and he said, I'm sitting under this Sunday school teacher who's a retired fighter pilot, and he said something to the effect of, if you're a fighter pilot, don't think it's because you're all that. It's because God has entrusted you with this ministry. And Tony said, I'm living my dream, and I'm doing what I've always wanted to do, and it's not enough. And I know that this is what God has for me. And now he is going to be 40 soon. He's handing the baton to the next generation of fighter pilots because someone mentored him, someone he respected, beginning in our home. Now he loves his wife well. He loves his children well. And he understands mentorship. Steve never sat him down and said, this is how you be a mentor. But that's how you learn it, right? Just living under the influence of it.
We're talking to Steve and Rhonda Stoppe, co-authors of The Marriage Mentor, Being the Couple You Long to Be. Rhonda is with us on the first Wednesday of every month at the 12 o'clock Central Time hour for the No Regrets Hour. She is the No Regrets woman, living the No Regrets marriage with the love of her life, the dream of her teens, And together they have been together for many, many years, have a wonderful family.
Many, many, many,
Many,
many,
many,
years.
many years. Not too many to count, but more than your fingers and more than your toes combined.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a short break, and when
Many.
we come back, we're going to talk some more about the importance and the impact of mentorship and how you who have been searching for your place in your church, your place in your home, your place in your community, where you can serve best, how you can make a difference, your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, your life can be a living testimony and help model, shape, and form the lives of others that do not have anyone to speak life into them or help guide them along the way in this thing we call life. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Steve and Rhonda Stoppe. Back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the day. Welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, who's not really your host because this is the No Regrets Hour, and our host is Rhonda Stoppe, joined together on this one-year anniversary of the No Regrets Hour. With her is the co-author, her husband, Steve, co-authors of The Marriage Mentor, Becoming the Couple You Long to Be. Steve and Rhonda Stoppe, welcome back to the No Regrets Hour, hosted by you.
Oh, thank you. I just woke up from a nap, so I'm good now.
We're good now. So here you have 15,000 millennials surveyed, and nobody's mentoring them. That means that nobody outside the immediate family, mom, dad, grandparents, grandmothers, nobody from the church community, nobody from the local community is speaking into their lives. We see a tremendous challenge in reaching this particular generation because they want relevance, not just words. They don't want to come hear a sermon because they want to see the application of it and they want to see the change. I have a young man and his wife in Israel that I mentor. They created a ministry called the Beautiful Land Initiative. And what they do is their ministry is they clean up beaches of trash. That's what they do. They go out every day and they clean up and groups join them. People actually are now booking trips to Israel and putting it on their calendar to join the Beautiful Land Initiative to go clean up this city or this community. And it's because they're a ministry of relevance. You can tangibly see the pile of trash. So our next step now is that they're getting burning permits because they incinerate the trash to make this become a bonfire, and all the people that have come joined alongside of them and the groups turn this into a bonfire. He's a musician, sings praise and worship, pull out his guitar, start singing praise and worship, and start talking about the Lord, but this is not an evangelical outreach. This is a clean up the beach ministry. And what he's found is by breaking bread, having fellowship, and people are asking him, why are you doing this? You're not from here. He's from the States. He's relocated. He was born in Israel, but came to the States when he was young, and shares the gospel. And he has all these young people coming to faith and joining alongside of him. And he and I have talked together, and I meet with him every year. Unfortunately, he's in Israel, and I'm only there once a year. But I meet with him every year, and we communicate, and we lay out strategies and plans to mentor him for the next step and the next part of the growth of the ministry. And it's because of relevance. And so imagine an older couple stepping in and talking about how more relevant they could be. Speaking and talking about their frustration. Well, I don't like the organized church because the organized church isn't this and isn't that. And showing them how to get plugged in, or plugging them in, or saying, you know what, you're right. There's nothing at our current church that fits you, but together we can map out a plan, and together we can go find together. Hey, we'll go with you. I'll invite some other people to our lunch next month that have some experience in this. Maybe I'll have my attorney come along with us, or maybe I'll have my pediatrician come alongside. He has some experience in this, and it's connecting people, and it's what we used to call networking, but it's no longer networking. It's mentoring, and it's connecting people with other people and speaking into their life. So if I take the Marriage Mentor book, how do I use this? How do I apply this? Do I read this for me and then come alongside of, if I had a wife, come alongside of my wife and say, you know, we need to grab a hold of these concepts for our own life, but we also need to look around at some of these young couples that they seem to be doing okay, but, you know, you can tell. I ask the Lord, show me who you want. How do I engage? How do I even start this dialogue?
What I would say about this book is you meet people all the time, and they'll say, well, my husband's not a reader. We would read it, but I'm not a reader. So we made videos that go with each chapter that you can go on the website and just watch Steve and I chatting very organically about each chapter's message in the book. So maybe that's where you start. If you can't get a couple to go through the book with you, or your spouse even, just start by watching one or two of the videos together and having a conversation. It's interesting because people feel like, I don't have enough, my marriage wasn't great, how can I go mentor a younger couple when I didn't do it perfectly? But in reality, I teach more passionately from my failures than I do from my successes. I want to help warn somebody not to make the same mistakes I've made. I think our pride sometimes, or fear of rejection of man or whatever, keeps us from being transparent and being genuine, even with our own kids. And our kids know when we're a mess, and we pretend like we're okay, but that hypocrisy actually drives them away from the church when we're not being real.
Oh, I think part of that whole, you know, the Bible in Deuteronomy talks about how we train our kids, right? It's that constant, you're looking for opportunities all the time. When you're sitting down, when you're walking down the road, when you're doing all these things. It's not just, oh, okay, kids, we're going to sit down and have a mentoring time now. We're going to have a teaching time now. And I think it's one of those things where you just constantly are looking at opportunities with people. You know, if you probe people, just ask them some questions, you'd be amazed at how they would open up to you. And I've seen this a lot of times, even with people at our church. I'll say, hey, can I connect you with this person or that person? I think you guys might be able to have a little connection there. And they say, well, what do we talk about? And I think that's the big problem, why people wouldn't maybe do this mentoring thing, or they feel like, well, where's the program for that? Well, it's not the program. You're doing it while you're sitting with them, while you're walking along the road, while you're resting in the way, whatever it might be. It's an ongoing, it just spills out of you because, number one, because you've taken it in. If you're not, what do they say about learning? You read it, you memorize it, but it's not until you actually regurgitate it and give it out to where you really understand and where you really get it. And I think it's not just taking in God's word and learning from His word, but now it's taking it and saying, okay, so how can I speak that word to others? How can I use that to help them? And then it's looking for that opportunity at all times. You're seeing somebody that is in need. Maybe you have somebody over here that says, okay, I'd like to do that, but what's the program? There is no program. Go ask them some questions about what's going on in their life. How can you pray for them? You know, maybe get that connection going, have a little conversation, maybe communicate, maybe start a relationship. Obviously, it's got to, you got to have a relationship if you're going to get into that nitty gritty of people, and so that's a big part of it. But then, as you're doing that, you can start to share with them, well, what are you doing in your life? Why is your life successful? Why do you have this walk with the Lord and you love Him and you care about pleasing Him and bringing honor and glory to Him? Because that's really what we're made for, is to glorify God. So all these things start to you start to make that transition from this just being about me glorifying God to me being able to share with others how they too can bring glory to God. And so it becomes a very important, I think, a very important nuance for a person to understand. This is what God has given to me. This is, so many times people say, well, we talked about it on the break, if people go to church and after 6 months they're not using their gift or whatever it might be, so they go, and I understand that, but I think the problem we have with people is they go someplace wanting, what do I get out of it, right? I mean, that's really our thing. What am I going to get out of it? If I listen to you preach, what am I going to get out of it? Well, you may not get anything out of it because your heart's not right. But if you're looking at it from a perspective of what can I get out of it, you probably won't get a whole lot. If you're looking at it from a perspective of how can I serve here? How can I be used by God here? Then it's going to change your perspective. And I think that's what we need people to have, is that perspective of, if you're a child of God, you are a servant of God. If you've had your heart changed by the power of the Spirit, and you have a new life in Jesus Christ, where you were dead, you are now alive, where you were in darkness, now you're in light. If that metamorphosis changed in your life, then you are a child of God, and you do have a mandate to serve others and it not be about you. And I think then that can make it a little bit easier for somebody to make that jump to go, so how then can I go ask that person what's going on in their life and start a conversation and maybe get to a point where we can kind of talk about some of the deeper things of what's going on. How many couples do we have come into our church and from the outside, like you were saying, things look okay. Things look, oh, yeah, they're going along. But maybe they've got some real financial problems, and it's causing a lot of stress in their house. Well, you can go yell at them and tell them stop spending, right? Or you can say, okay, so how do we set up a budget so you guys can live with that? We have people in our church, because they have a hard time with the budget, they will actually put money in an envelope for different things that they need to pay for, and when that envelope is gone, they don't buy anymore for the month.
Right.
Unless they steal from this one over here to put in here so they can eat, whatever. But it's learning to live that practical life, and that takes a lot of stress out of maybe a problem that you had that's been really festering up your marriage previous. Now you've kind of got a fix for that because somebody came alongside and mentored you.
Steve,
one of the things that
you identified something that's kind of chronic. One is the bless me if you can attitude that some people walk in the door.
should be a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Kind of the throwdown. All right, well, bless me if you can. And the other one is the placeholders. And I'm sure you've seen this. The couple that come, they always come. They don't really engage. They're just placeholders. And mentorship is kind of like the antidote to people who have been regularly attending, but they don't serve. They don't want to have a home group, so they don't want people in their home, and they don't want to serve on a committee. They don't want to be. I just want to come. But when you talk about becoming relevant and life-changing, and guess what? It's not about you, but it actually is all about you. You're going to get a chance to do nothing but talk about yourself and your marriage and the things that worked and the things that didn't work. And you're going to have a young couple that's going to hang on every word. And while you're telling them your story, you're actually solving problems for them. And you get to do what everybody's favorite thing to do is talk about themselves. And that's marriage mentoring. That's a mentorship program. And so it's like a clarion call to our audience. If you've been going to church every Sunday and you're not serving, and you're just there to suck up the word and to be blessed if you can, and then you walk out the door and you're there because of fellowship. People go to bars because of fellowship.
Sure.
That's why bars
Sure.
exist. It's for fellowship. It's not for liquor. It's not for anything else. It's for fellowship. So imagine if you could change the course of an entire life. Somebody who is searching, this generation that doesn't have, I was mentored by my grandparents. They were the ones that gave me my entire Jewish identity. They gave me my entire Eastern European identity. I knew where I was from. I knew who I was. I knew my relationship to Israel. I knew because they imparted that and trained me and took me to the right people and spoke into my life and connected me. And I'll be 67 on my next birthday, and I remember every place they took me and every lesson that they taught me. And they came to America in 1904 from the shtetls of Eastern Europe, and they developed ideas and attitudes about America that I still see through their eyes. One of my grandfather's old adages, which is kind of a negative, but it's actually true, is that almost everybody in America will take from you. It's your responsibility to determine how much. That was his old world lesson that he came to America with. Well, that's not a real high compliment, but it actually is a very sobering truth that we do have to be in control of what we give or what we let others take from us. We have to have boundaries. It's kind of the overarching message. But he was talking about people robbing his cash register. But the overarching lesson today now is is much more universal. But without that, I think I would be lost in life. I don't think I would have ever come to the knowledge of the saving grace of God had I not had this firm foundation of this mentorship. We have about 5 minutes left in this segment. As you mentor other couples and as you see this marriage mentoring, what is, people say communication's the number one problem, sex is the number one problem, in-laws are the number one problem, money is the number one problem. You've had enough time to observe and have enough conversation to talk about what are some of the issues that if you had a mentor, you would be able to overcome because they're real, they do exist, they are commonly shared, some universal challenges in the growing of two people together. What are some of those that you address?
Well, everything.
Sin.
Well, I was just going to say everything you mentioned really comes from one place, and that's the word is sin, and the next word I would say is selfishness, right? I get married because I want to have that woman. It's about me. I want to get married because I want that woman to fulfill in me everything that I want. Rhonda talks about women that look at their man to find their happiness. You need to make me happy. Well, the reality is you're going to the wrong source, and so my source is Christ. My source is the Spirit of God who lives within me. My source is He's the one who makes me feel valuable. He's the one who makes me feel that I have a purpose. He's the one that does all those things for me. So when I become selfish, then I start looking for other things to fulfill me or other things to the whole list of things you just mentioned. Very selfishly now I go into those things and I want those things and I want them for me and I want you to fulfill those for me. So that's where I would start, sin, selfishness.
And I think having a mentor, I know for me, when I found, I talk about in the marriage mentor, couples that were married for a long time. Steve was working in youth ministry at the time, those couples that still liked each other, that still held hands. I wanted to know what they knew. And they were genuine, real people that had their own real struggles with their own sin, but they gave me hope that Christ could do a work in me like He had done in them. So finding those real people that are going to be genuine. So many things that you guys were talking about earlier about mentors. One of the basic things that a person can do is stick around after the church service is over. That's our team. The people that just, I go to the back door to shake hands with people that are going to run right out before we get a chance to visit with them, just to acknowledge visitors or, But then the people that really want to be in each other's lives stick around. We get out at noon. I think we leave about 1:30 or 2 o'clock when we're finally all famished and starving.
It's like people go home.
But you can look around the room. I'm going to cry. And I just did this. We did a birthday party. My son-in-law's birthday is tomorrow. He'll be 30. Happy birthday, Esteban. And we did a surprise party for him after church. And everybody stayed. And it was a big barbecue of tacos. And it was super fun. But I looked around. And this woman's hugging a younger woman, praying with her in the middle of a taco party. And this couple over here is older, sitting with a younger couple and laughing together and holding each other's babies. If you don't stick around for, 20 minutes after church, and if you are a stick-arounder, don't go talk to your buddies. But tell them, I'm going to talk to you in a minute, but I'm going to look for opportunities to mentor. I'm going to look for opportunities to encourage. That's a good place to start in the church.
It might take a pastor, if any pastors are listening, it might take them to encourage their people to hang around. Because, you might see, well, if I stay at my church, I'll be the only one there. And that might very well be.
Happen, yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where if you start that habit of hanging around, a lot of mentoring happens during that time. And yeah, guys will talk, motorcycles, hunting, whatever they like to do. And we get that, and that's okay. But a lot of times it sets up for their women to be talking about things that are important too. And every once in a while you'll see a man off in the corner talking with another man about something that's on his heart and mind. They'll be praying together, and it's like, okay, so just that communication, that conversation is happening, and I think that's something that maybe the pastor, you're kind of doing that even with your show, encouraging people to be that person. Maybe you even encourage your pastors, hey, encourage your people, hang out. We're done with the service, whatever. So what, you got a roast in the oven? Forget putting a roast in the oven. Just hang around. Be with one another.
We do a linger longer once a month, just to linger longer. Well, we eat together. Oh, now we do it quarterly.
Yeah, but it got to be way too much with so many people. But if you have that time where you're getting together and talking about some, you can go eat later. Bring a candy bar or peanut butter something and to eat while you're there, so you don't get crazy because you haven't eaten. But make that an opportunity for you to reach into others' lives.
And
that's
pastors
a good start.
Need you. I just did an article, and I know we don't have time to talk about it. It's going to be on Crosswalk. It's called Do Christians Get to Retire? Your pastor sees when you're on his team. I can't get to every visitor. He can't. But we can watch people, make people feel welcome. What do they say? How many times if someone visits your church before they won't come back if they don't feel connected? A pastor and his wife cannot get to every single person, but you can look people in the eye, and they are longing for community. Make it organic and just talk about hunting or fishing, but then show them the reason your marriage works is because of Christ in you, the hope of glory.
Well, we have run out of time, but Steve, I'm going to give you one last piece of word of wisdom, and that is what I used to tell my people when they had stuck around too long, and I would say to them, I can't miss you if you don't leave.
I like that.
So when you're ready to get them out the door, the loving pastoral way for me to get them out the door would say, "Listen, I love you, but I can't miss you if you don't leave."
Don't leave. Yeah, exactly. The problem is I'm usually one of the first ones, deep in conversation doing something. So
of course, we are the worst offenders. We've been talking with Steve and Rhonda Stoppe, authors of The Marriage Mentor, Becoming the Couple You Long to Be, a message of mentorship, meaning that any couple, any person out there with any amount of experience can speak into another person's life. And the ministry of one anothering is exactly what God's called us to do. This is a way for you to be able to do it. This is a handbook for you as a couple, and for you to not only learn for yourself, but to also be active and important in another person's life and help become a kingdom builder and one that continues to fill the cracks that are taking place in the kingdom around us by mentoring other couples. Steve and Rhonda Stoppe, God bless both of you. Thank you. Rhonda, we'll see you. And Steve, you can be as on as often as you want, which means that I'll probably see you in the second anniversary show.
Yeah, we'll see.
That could be a thing.
That may work organically.
There you go. There you go. God bless you both. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.